Welcome everyone to this month's second Tuesday. I was hoping on making this session less than 30 minutes, but as we got into it, building out the presentation, ChromaChecker has so many reports, and there's a couple of new reports that I think are really interesting. So I'm going to do my best to keep it to 30 minutes, but worst case is we'll go a little bit over, and hopefully with the new reports that you see, you'll be as excited as I am about what we're doing. So again, if you have questions, please post them in the chat. Beth will farm them out to me as we go. And this month's session is on reporting, measuring sustainability. And if we look at the definition of sustainability, it's avoidance of the depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. Well, what does that mean? In my opinion, it means eliminate waste. As a printing organization, waste is the #1 contributor to poor profitability. So as a printer, it's important to move to a zero waste condition. Now, obviously, that's not possible today, especially with conventional type presses where you have to have some make ready to get the press up to color. But there's tools to minimize that make ready to maybe 50 sheets to get you to the right color. And in this way, be significantly better than most companies, which probably average 200 to 500 sheets of make ready. So if we're going to be sustainable and we need to eliminate waste, we need to determine what is waste. And the only way to determine what is waste is to determine what is sellable. And what is sellable? It's something that the customer is going to pay for. If they bring out their credit card and they say, hey, yes, I will pay you the full amount that you guys quoted to me, that's sellable. Anything less than that is not sellable. And you, as a print organization, how do you determine what is sellable? Because things like G7, just because it's G7 doesn't mean it's sellable. Doesn't mean it isn't sellable, but it doesn't mean it's sellable. So it's critical for your shop to determine a tolerance that defines sellability that you can then communicate to every operator, because the operator is the last place where the print's coming out, and the operator has to have a way to know that what's coming out of the printer is sellable. But you also have to let every salesperson know what's sellable, so the salesperson doesn't go sell a print capability that your organization is not capable of attaining. Because if you try to attain a condition to meet the customer's expectations and you can't, you're going to lose money trying to make that customer happy. And if the person purchasing the materials, the raw materials such as paper or ink for your inkjet printers, if they're buying the paper on special this week, that's going to affect the quality of the print coming out of your output devices. Because if the paper is changing every week, there's no way in a production environment you can update profiles every week, maintain consistency, and make money. It's just not possible. So the whole company has to be in line with what's sellable. And why report what's sellable? This creates visibility, accountability, and responsibility. Most print organizations today are still having what I call a break-fix mentality. You just run it till the customer complains. And that is the death knell for profitability. And that's why the majority of printing organizations in North America today make less than 2% profit on their sales. Reprinting jobs, giving discounts, credits, destroys profitability. We need to move to a proactive mentality, meaning know when the printer starts drifting. Common question: how do I know that my profile is still valid? I've seen this posted on so many color management forums, and you can take the best experts in the industry and most of them don't answer this well. My answer is, if you're tracking your printing device and you're tracking it to check its accuracy against a given reference, such as Grackle, and you're checking the consistency from day to day, because color management is at least two metrics. It's the accuracy of how close you are to the reference you're trying to hit, and it's the consistency of the device over time. Well, if you see that the consistency of that device over time is increasing or getting worse, then once it gets to your tolerance of sellable, it's time to reprofile that device. It's simple. But the problem is most quality control programs don't check this consistency at the same time it's checking accuracy. ChromaChecker does. And so in this way, ChromaChecker allows you to have a proactive mentality to know that, oh, hey, my indigo profile needs to be updated because it's moving up beyond my level of acceptability or sellability, and I need to update it to bring it back down into a condition which provides a color match which is acceptable. And there's all this talk about AI and artificial intelligence. And I kind of laugh because to make AI work, you need to have data. And there's no system in the world that I know of that collects as much data about how different printing devices are printing color than ChromaChecker. And we've already started to implement predictive capabilities within our software to know that, hey, your humidity is through the roof, your ABC large format printer is going to start drifting and going off of its accuracy because of temperature and humidity. Send an email to the person responsible for the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Tell them that the room that the large format printer's in needs to be checked. Someone left a window open or something that caused the humidity to go way off. These are capabilities that are in ChromaChecker today. And so using this data, we can anticipate, and we had a session on this, I think, last month, we can anticipate when a certain printer like an iridescent, when the primary housing goes out of spec, we know what that data looks like, and we can communicate right to the vendor, Xerox, saying, hey, the cyan housing on iridescent number 2 at ABC Litho just broke. Someone needs to go out there and replace it. So these are capabilities that you get with a print quality platform like our ChromaChecker system. And we talk about conformance, and we've been talking about conformance for a number of years. And other companies are trying to use the word conformance, but they don't really implement it. Conformance means, is it sellable or not? That's why we call ourselves a color conformance platform. And it uses a metric called E factor, which is a type of delta E that can be used to quantify how different two pages are from a reference or from one another. We call this E factor. It's simple. It's the 95th percentile delta E, which is used in a number of metrics, but never in a broad sense as what we're using. And yet this metric has been known about for over 20 years. And there are some other companies that have used this type of metric, but not at the scale that we're using it. So if you use process control metrics like G7, that's great. And G7 is a phenomenal methodology to get your devices into a shared visual appearance. But notice I'm saying a shared visual appearance. I'm not saying a color match. And remember, guys, I'm a G7 expert trainer, so I train people to do G7 to become a G7 expert. So I'm not disparaging G7 at all. G7 is a natural step in the evolution of improving your color quality. But it's not the be-all, end-all, because it's crazy to me. I'll ask a bunch of G7 experts saying, okay, I've got 4 G7 prints here. Which one's most accurate? to, let's say, Grackle. And these G7 experts will look at me like deer in headlights going, well, what do you mean which one's most accurate? They're all G7. I'm like, yep, they're all G7, but G7 does not guarantee a color match. G7 guarantees a shared visual appearance. I'm asking you which one of these prints is most accurate to the Grackle bullseye in terms of matching what I'm trying to get all my printers to match if I'm printing on an uncoated material. And they'll be lost. They'll be like, well, I was never taught that. And then I'm like, but how many times have you had multiple prints that are G7 and you line them up and they don't look the same? And then you're wondering, well, which one's most right? I mean, I was doing this 15 years ago. And people are still kind of lost. Also, G7 doesn't define sellability. I guarantee you, for most printing devices, if you had G7 requirement as sellable, the printer would probably go out of business in pretty short order. Because when we built the G7 metrics to confirm what is G7 and what isn't, it wasn't for sellability purposes. It was to prove that you could do G7 one time, 1 year with a G7 consultant present. It wasn't meant to run every job every day that way, because especially with conventional presses, you'd go out of business because you can't sustain that every day. The accuracy and precision of these presses are not capable of doing G7 every day. We've got thousands of presses in ChromaChecker reporting this, and you're lucky if you're G7 compliant, you're lucky if 20% of your press runs have a sheet or two that are G7 compliant, just to give you an idea. So G7's a great stepping stone, but it's not the be all end all. E factor is that next step. E factor tells you how close any print is to your given reference, and in many cases, more importantly, how close is any print to one another? Now, these two prints that I'm showing here, they're both G7 compliant. But look at the tomatoes. Oh my goodness. The E factor difference between these two prints is 7.4. Because G7 does not guarantee a color match. G7 guarantees gray balance and tonality, not color. It doesn't affect the red overprint. If the red overprint naturally does this on one printer and naturally does that on the other printer, G7 doesn't fix that. You need an ICC profile or a device link to fix that. And G7 for too long, I think, has just been oversold as the be all end all. And it's a nice step. It's not the only step. So we published our 2017 TAGA paper showing that if your printer or printers are within a 3 E factor of the given goal, 95% of all print buyers will accept it. If it's 8, which the difference here is 8, you can see that's pretty extreme, 95% of all print buyers will not accept it. So 3 to 8 is kind of what I call the danger zone, and that's where most printing occurs, and it's where the printer crosses their fingers that if my printer is printing a 5, which is, by the way, about the 50% mark, where 50% of the print buyers will accept the 5 and 50 won't, you're crossing your fingers, especially if you don't have history with that print buyer, that they'll accept the 5 that you give them. And if they don't, guess what? You're losing money because you're going to have to either redo it or give them a discount, which is what we're trying to avoid. So printers that have implemented E factor as a key performance indicator, KPI, remember this. If you're into sustainability and Six Sigma, this is a key metric because now you can use this KPI to qualify how well each of your printing devices are performing, even under different operators. This is incredibly useful. And once you start looking at your print organization like this, you'll never think of doing it any other way. So it all goes back to, if you've got multiple printing devices, you're trying to line them up to hit a common aim point, like Grackle. If you have, let's say, Mamaki, and you're printing the Mamaki to the best the Mamaki does. And then next month, the Mamaki hits its end of life and you get a Inca to replace it. Trying to get that Inca to hit the Mamaki could be impossible. But if you had that Mamaki hitting Grackle, now when you get the Inca in to hit Grackle, now when you're doing repeat work, it's the same. Well, it won't be the same, but it'll be very similar as opposed to the difference between how a Mamaki prints and an Inca prints. So the concept here is you've got Grackle as your aim point, and then your different printing devices, when they're properly color managed and calibrated, they're trying to hit this aim point. And then you can set a tolerance for them hitting this aim point. And it's like a dart target. Each printer is a dart, and you're trying to get each dart close to the bullseye. And it helps you prioritize, hey, my man roll and press is 9.3 off. Well, I should really update my G7 curve for the man roll and press and make sure the guys are hitting the right densities to get that man roll and press into this ring of acceptability or sellability. And then this also gives me the ability to know how close my printers are to one another. So in this way, I can look at my Epson and my HP, and I can quantify how many E factor they are from one another. So even though they might both be 2 to the Grackle bullseye, if one's at 3 o'clock and one's at 9 o'clock, they could be 4 E factor to one another, as this example shows. So that could be a problem if you're trying to keep things to 3.5. So ChromaChecker does all of this phenomenal calculation for how all your printers are manufacturing color every day, not just 1 year, one time with a consultant present. It's doing this all the time. And with ChromaChecker reporting, that all you have to do is turn on, if you have ChromaChecker, it provides reporting for all levels within the organization. And what's really unique is that these reports are sent out automatically. There's nothing you as a color expert or administrator have to do. And almost all reports, the graphics of the report are in the email. Because, presidents and top level managers, you don't want them clicking on links or downloading PDFs. So when they click on the email, it shows in the email body the graphic telling them how every printer is performing. And we're going to show these samples in a minute. You can also have departments. The large format department gets a report of just the large format presses, and the conventional department gets just conventional presses, and pre-press just gets pre-press, so that they only see what's relevant to them. And same with location. So a plant manager gets their location in all departments. So it's incredibly flexible in terms of how it shows you the data, so you can prioritize which presses are not printing to par, either due to mechanical issues or maybe operator issues, so that the manager can get on top of that and improve the sellability of that printer, which in turn improves the profitability of the printer. Operators will see their performance versus similar operators. So they'll know, are they above the line or are they below the line? Should they learn how to operate this printer better because their peers are, or do they not even care? And maybe they should go back to flipping burgers. So a lot of this data can give you great insight in terms of what's happening with the organization. And as I mentioned, color is every employee's responsibility. You can't, so many companies have tried to have one color expert to manage everything, be responsible for the presses and the digital and the proofers. And even if you have 5 printing devices, one person can't do it all. Color conformance has to be an organizational wide responsibility, because typically the operator who's checking the printer might not be the same person you have checking the light booth or checking the temperature and humidity. So you can define different people within your organization to be responsible for these, what I call secondary variables that affect how your production is manufactured. And ChromaChecker will send email notifications to these individuals that are responsible for checking the instrument or the light, or real time if the humidity goes off, alerting them, hey, it's time to check this. Because if it's not checked, if your instrument was dropped once too many times and you don't know about it and it's not measuring right anymore, it might start giving you fails where in fact the printer's printing fine, and now you're chasing your tail trying to figure out why the printer's not printing right. Here's what the notification screen looks like within ChromaChecker's accountability inspector. And I'll probably pop out of here and show you accountability inspector at one point, but the notifications allow you to communicate whoever you've assigned to check the instruments using, let's say, ChromaChecker's instrument inspector to make sure the instrument is still measuring within the accuracy required by your shop, checking the light booth to make sure the light booth's still illuminating color correctly, making sure that the...
Dave, are you sharing your screen?
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? I thought I was sharing my screen. Obviously, I'm not. Well, if anyone wants my presentation, I'm more than happy to give it to you because I was talking through slides this whole time. And I greatly apologize for that. I'm so sorry.
It was
All right.
so captivating, Dave. Absolutely
It
captivating.
really was, Dave. Nice job.
I'm so embarrassed. Anyway, I apologize.
No, it's good. You had me convinced. I was just watching you talk.
I'll probably just redo this for the permanent recording with the slides. But so here's the notification for the instruments, lighting, and print inspector to make sure that people are checking. Because I've seen people with print inspector, it passes every time. And so the operator stopped doing it because they had 2 weeks in a row where the printer passed. And then they stopped doing it. And a pretty well-known digital printer manufacturer, one of the leading manufacturers in the industry, decided to change their cyan ink. And the operator stopped checking it. And then they had all sorts of color matching problems. And it wasn't 3 days later where the manager got the report that the operator running this digital press wasn't checking. They had a check, and immediately they saw that the cyan ink was wrong from the manufacturer, which caused a whole bunch of waste and a whole lot of finger pointing and chasing tails and everything else. And it just caused a real problem. In this way, you can always be alert that everyone's doing what they should be doing. Now, the top manager within the organization can get a report that looks like this, and it funnels up all the data from all their printers, from all their locations, from all the departments, showing you how each, in this case, location has performed over the last 8 weeks. The purple line is the average. And then each of the colored lines, in this case, represent different plants, one in Arizona, one in Indiana, and one in Minnesota. So that at a Monday morning, they get this report and they can see that almost all their printers are printing sellable color, hence the green segment at the top. If you start seeing a trend line going down, then it might require some talking to managers going, what's going on? Are we losing our focus here? Are we keeping track of what's going on? And ideally, we should see it's really fun. In the beginning, we see the color going up because as companies start using ChromaChecker and start understanding how to use it and implementing color management, we get a real nice upward slope showing the improvement in quality and the reduction in waste. And then you get to a certain point where you now need to maintain it. And that's what ChromaChecker does. And it shows you you're maintaining this level of quality and sellability. Now, one level down from the top managers, let's say I'm a department manager or I'm a location manager. I get my line for my location or my department against the average of the company. So in this case, in my department, I'm the blue line and the purple line is the average of all the companies. I can see that my department is underperforming compared to everybody else. So then down below, I get a hierarchy of which presses are holding me back, which presses need priority, either from a training perspective, a service perspective, or a maintenance perspective, to fix that device, to improve its sellability so that my numbers will rise up. I've had so many department managers and presidents tell me that they were never in tune with what's really going on the manufacturing floor until they got ChromaChecker, and now they can't even understand how they ran their business without this. It's so critical. Now, if you're a line manager, you want to be able to understand that scenario I gave you earlier, where maybe so much maintenance has been done on the device that the device is drifting over time and it needs a new G7 curve, or if it's a conventional press, or an ICC profile if it's a digital press. And so this is a line manager report kind of showing you the trend of that printer over time, again, automatically on a Monday morning. And then it even gives you up arrows and down arrows to tell you if the trend is getting better or getting worse. So you can be more aware of, oh yeah, this is press X13. It's getting worse from the last week, and I need to kind of look into that and see what's going on before it brings my overall score down compared to the rest of the company. And again, here's another middle level manager line report showing you how often it's been measured, how often it's been missed. You see the yellow zones in here are the times that the operator did not check the press within the allotted time period. So ideally, you don't want any yellow spaces in here. That means the operator's checking it regularly. And regularly could be anything. For an offset press, regularly, ideally, if you have an automated scanning device like an IntelliTrax, this should never be yellow, because they should be using that automated measurement device multiple times on every job every day. But if we're working with a digital press where you might just measure it maybe once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and maybe someone skips an afternoon, so there's 4 hours of time if you're single shift that press isn't checked, that could be a problem if you need it checked every 4 hours. So all this is customizable per the type of printing process that you're working with. And then, of course, as an operator, you get your own report. And the average is against other operators in the same type of device. So if I'm a sheet-fed press operator, I get my score against the other sheet-fed press operators. So again, I can know if I'm above the line or below the line in terms of how well the press is performing when I'm working on it. And this is a sense of peer pressure that if I'm below the line, maybe I need some more training. I need to reach out to my management for help, because no one wants to be below the line, because if there's a layoff, I'm going to be the first one gone. So I need to improve my capabilities to bring this device up a notch. Now, Color Inspector. Everything I've been showing so far has been really related to Print Inspector. And in the ChromaChecker ecosystem, Print Inspector is all about process control. So you're measuring a color bar, you're checking the sellability of the print. But a lot of people are now using ChromaChecker as what I'll call a quality control check. So I'm checking to make sure that my Ritz or my Barilla packaging is the right color. And so it's not so much the entire process as it might be the 3 Ritz colors that are on here. And we've had a lot of customers convert from color cert and measure color into ChromaChecker due to its breadth of capability, meaning it does both process control and quality control for the same price. It's not just quality control. We do both. And we now mix the data. So if you sometimes measure the rich colors on a process control color bar, and sometimes you measure it in a spot mode, you can measure that same rich color from one report, no matter how it was produced, which I don't know of anyone else that can do that. So with the color tracking report, we can set up parameters for what I want to show in terms of the 95th percentile delta E, the regular delta E, to give me reports that look like this, to show me how well my device A did in terms of brand color. And again, it can show me individual operator performance. The report on the right is showing me device A versus device B versus the average between the two. And then the report on the left shows me how each operator did while they were running the press to do, let's say, my Ritz work. And in Color Inspector, if you're using Color Inspector, if you go into any color, you'll see that we have a new button called Color Tracking. And this Color Tracking button allows you to click it, and then it shows you the history of this color over time. And like all of our graphs, you can show them in real time, or you can show them in equal intervals. And it will show you, in this case, the delta E of this color over time. And you'll see we've got some 16 delta E's here, but for the most part, they're down in the below 5 range. But obviously, this color is a tricky color because there's some higher numbers there. And when we take a look at the reporting within Color Inspector will show you where the data came from. So whether the data came from a project, which Project Inspector is new, but we've got a number of users now using it, and we're going to hopefully talk about Project Inspector next month, or Print Inspector or Color Inspector. So no matter where the color came from, if it's in the library, you can track all uses of how your company reproduces color, whether or not it was on an IntelliTrax on your offset press, whether it was in a Teshcon on your Flexo press, whether it was an i1 on your Inca press. ChromaChecker will show you all the scenarios, and you'll see in this graphic, you see the different icons. So the blue P is Print Inspector, the kind of the pinkish bullseye is Color Inspector or Project Inspector. And when you click on that, it'll bring you right to the data of that Print Inspector job where this color was run. So this is a new capability in ChromaChecker where we're blending data that you've collected in Color Inspector, data that you've collected in Print Inspector, where it's common color. You can automatically report how it was produced, no matter the measurement device, no matter the press, no matter the operator, no matter the location, anywhere in the world, we're bringing all this data together. This again is new capability in ChromaChecker, and it's why a bunch of color cert and measure color companies are transitioning to ChromaChecker. And by the way, if you're transitioning from color cert, we can actually import the database, the SQL database from color cert for your projects, for your samples, for your standards. You don't have to reinvent any of those. We have built an input filter that allow you to bring all that predefined data into ChromaChecker, so you don't have to redefine it. It's all defined the way you have it in color cert, but now you can collect it using our capture software in ChromaChecker and get all of this great reporting, no matter which press the data is coming from. This is another new report. This is what we call our PSP reporting, which is great for brands, but it's also great for printers. If you're a printer and you offload jobs, because this is your peak season, and we've got a number of printers out there doing this, it's their peak season, they don't have enough presses to carry it, so they offload jobs to other third-party printing companies. And using ChromaChecker's Project Inspector, you can push out a print requirements exchange file to a printer. They know exactly what you're expecting them to print. They print it, and then it automatically reports back into your ChromaChecker showing how well that third-party printer printed your work. And then as that printer, you get to see how these third-party printers printed your work on a per press basis, so you know that they're meeting your expectations for the offloading of print jobs that you're giving to them. And of course, this works great for brands because most brands don't have printing devices, so they offload everything. And this again provides a weekly report showing how each print service provider printed the brand's jobs, meeting the brand's requirements. And like our other reports, these reports can automatically be sent back out to the print service provider with no work on behalf of your company. It's checking a box in ChromaChecker's Accountability Inspector that it sends this report out to the PSP showing how well they printed against the average of the other third-party companies that are printing that same type of work. So again, peer pressure on the third-party PSP that, hey, we're watching you, and how are you performing against the other third parties that we're using to offload our work. So it's a phenomenal capability to help your company know that even though you're not manufacturing the color, other companies are manufacturing the color. Now, I'm just going to take a breath here. I'm seeing there's 7 chats. Beth, anything relevant?
A lot of no worries and nice, and mentioned GMI.
Okay. Well, GMI is it's a company that has come up with a set of requirements that if brand ABC goes with GMI, you as a printer have to hit GMI requirements. We have all those requirements predefined in ChromaChecker. We have their color bar defined in the public library in ChromaChecker. We have their tolerances predefined in ChromaChecker. So if you have to do work on behalf of GMI, you can use ChromaChecker to ensure that that work is meeting GMI requirements. So great question in there. Thanks for asking that. So where do you find all this? Well, in the Accountability Inspector, which isn't, we're talking reporting. You might not think reporting is in Accountability Inspector, but most of it is. So within the Accountability Inspector, we have an overview. So you see on my screen here on the right side of the tab, and the overview is where we can identify which employee is responsible for checking the print device, the instruments, the plate setter, the lighting, the data loggers for collecting temperature and humidity. All of these secondary variables can be assigned to people so that they get the notifications when these devices are needing to be checked. Then each of the devices can be assigned to either teams or employees. And then I've said from the beginning, all you need to do is turn it on. We have found that the majority of our ChromaChecker users are not using this reporting function. Please turn it on. And all turning it on means is in this diagram of Accountability Inspector, you'll see the different reports. I didn't go through all of them. I went through many of them. You'll see the PSP report here and the operator report and the top manager report. But if you just click on enable, that green button on the far right, that will enable the report. And then if you look at these settings on the left, you'll see that many of these reports are now generate on demand. So you can set up the report, you can do a sample preview of what the report looks like, and you can generate the report so you can see what the data looks like before giving it to the top brass in your company. We found in the early days of using ChromaChecker, people were like, well, I'm scared to turn this on because I'm not sure what the report's going to show. And I want to be preemptive and educate the boss before they see everything being read or what have you. So this allows you to generate a report on demand. You can see it. You can make a PDF. You can bring it to the managers. Say, hey, this is what you're going to get every week now. This will allow you to be more in tune with the manufacturing. so forth and so on. Another great thing that not enough of our users do, I've seen it in a number of our customers, and they love it, is get a 60-inch TV, put it on the plant floor or multiple plant floors, so it's highly visible. Everyone can see it. And then you set your web browser on this TV to be the ChromaChecker Print Inspector window. And then all icons that you'll see in a minute in Print Inspector should be green. And every person within that organization, whether they're the person checking the plates, the lighting, the printers, the proofers, the presses, the temperature and humidity, when they walk through that plant room floor, after you put this in, you will see them all looking up to the screen to make sure their icon is green, because this is master visibility for everyone in the organization to look there. And if their icon isn't green, that means they have a problem and they better go fix it as quick as they can. And the peer pressure is just crazy. And it's all positive. It's all positive, because if you're doing what you should be doing, it'll always be green. It's when people get lazy and they're like, oh, no one's checking. It's in a notebook in somebody's desk back here. I can just fill it in later. No, that's not a proactive mentality for quality. That is a break fix mentality. So this communicates to the entire organization that everybody responsible for color production in their own way is doing what they should do. And it completely eliminates finger pointing and the blame game. I know you've all seen that. And here's what the report looks like on the 60-inch screen. And you can see before it's done, before you, let's kind of, let me back up a second here. Kind of went on auto drive for me. So let me just back up. This is what it looks like before you populate it in Accountability Inspector. The icons are gray. Once you populate it, the icons will go green. And in this way, depending upon how the icons are green, it'll tell you different things. So let me back up to here. Here's a case where, this one here. So if we look at the bottom of the screen, the press, the man roll and press is, the man roll and press, I've got a new version of my Keynote, and went on automatic there for a second, but here we go. So you see the icon on the press is 9.3 over on the right. That's where you want to look. How is that press manufacturing the color? It's 9.3 E factor. No one's going to accept it. Now the press guy is going to say the plates were bad. Well, look on the left, the plate icon is red. Yeah, the plates were bad. So you probably never even should have put this on press, because before you put the plates on press, you should have looked up on the dashboard to make sure the plates were checked and that they were right, meaning the icon's green. But how often does the press go 9.3 and the press operator blames the plates? But if they had a place to look on the dashboard and the plate icon's green, they're not going to blame the plates anymore. Because, hey, the icon's green, that they've been checked within the allotted time period. They're right. Don't blame the plates. They're right. And in this way, it again makes everyone accountable. Now, on this next scenario,
Dave,
the press is still 9.3, but the paper went on auto again. The paper is red. So now, hey, you put the wrong paper in the press. And by the way, ChromaChecker will come up with a message to the press operator going, hey, you might have the wrong substrate in here because it's more than 3 delta E off. You might want to check that. And so there might not be anything wrong with the plate or the press or the curves. It's that they loaded the wrong paper for the given grackle condition they're trying to aim for. And because the paper's off by 4.3, the press could easily be off by 9.3. Remember, paper's the 5th color and 4-color printing. ChromaChecker can be set up to look at this automatically. And then, of course,
Okay.
these other icons mean the instrument icon is checking the instrument, make sure it's ISO compliant. The water droplet is the ink fountain, is the fountain solution. The dot with the line in between is the nip pressures and nip widths for the conventional press. The light bulb is the light booth, and then the thermometer is the temperature and humidity. So the temperature and humidity icon is for the plant manager responsible for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. If that icon goes red for the man roll and press, they get an email and it'll show a red icon and it says, boy, you got to go fix that. So I've had owners tell me that ChromaChecker, before ChromaChecker, they say that every employee had a paddle and they would use it to blame somebody else and knock them over the head with the paddle. After ChromaChecker, every employee has a paddle and now they know what they're supposed to do with it. They're supposed to row in a certain direction. And now they feel like all the employees are in the same boat with their own paddles, rowing in the right direction. And there's no more finger pointing. There's no more bickering. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And it's brought the shop together in a harmonized way like never before. And that's why these print owners have hugged me, because they've taken a kind of a dysfunctional blame game scenario and turned it completely around into a symbiotic kumbaya. Let's all do what we're supposed to do, and the end result will be higher profitability. And for companies that pay their employees based on profit, this is a no-brainer, because everybody knows that their bonus at the end of the year is going to be bigger if they reduce waste and improve sustainability. So,
Dave,
yeah.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
No.
there was a question a couple minutes ago. And it is, how about integration and communication of ChromaChecker reports with third-party software like MIS, ERP, CRM systems? Are you guys offering any API for integration? Can you show the link in ChromaChecker e-learning platform to such topic related to API and report exchanging with MIS, ERP, CRM systems?
Absolutely. We have an API available in ChromaChecker. We have you sign an NDA to get it. We had one of our customers at the Color Conference last year showed us their API integration. They made we have an iOS app that shows you how well each printer is performing. But what they did was they're showing how well each printer is performing and what the run rate is for each printer. So they took their production data and tied it with the quality data. And now they can see, based on each press, what the run rate is and what the quality is. Because typically the higher the run rate, the lower the quality. And they've got parameters for all that because they've got all the numbers. So we have a number of customers using our API to integrate proprietary data from that customer with the color quality data to tie it together in a really meaningful way. And the people who were at the conference last year, when he was showing their integration of the API, everyone was just like, oh my goodness. And you know what? This was kind of proprietary on their side. And that's why I'm not using their name, because they felt comfortable enough with the people in the conference to share the benefit they're getting out of ChromaChecker. Most of our customers, they see this as a competitive advantage over their other companies, and they don't want to share how they're really utilizing ChromaChecker to improve their quality. We find that, especially last year, the people that were at the conference, it's just a big sharing session. People weren't holding back. The consultants that were there were sharing their expertise. Tim, he's on the call here. Tim, unmute yourself if you want to talk about this, because these guys Tim is one of our co-presenters and he's phenomenal. His knowledge is so great. And he's giving away a lot of his expertise at this color conference to get everybody better. And Dan Gillespie is also there, and he's sharing his knowledge, and people are still hiring them because they understand there's so much more to learn. And so we find that our color conference, by the way, the agenda is up to date. It's up online underneath the events. It's the end of January, 28th through the 30th, 3 days, very reasonable price. Fun area, Newport Richie. We're doing our boat trip again this year, and we're doing the Dented Keg. This what is it, a brewery?
Beer
So
bingo.
feel free to sign up or ask more. It's a real sharing opportunity because color, nobody knows it all. I mean, I've been doing this for, I don't even want to say, but it's been 30, 35 years, just really color focused. I know that I call it an onion. I keep peeling off layers of the onion. I'm not even halfway through it. I'm never going to get to the bottom of the onion before I die. I've given up on that. But like I said, nobody knows it all. We're all learning. And this conference is a learning session to help everybody understand how things work, because there's not one way to make things work either. You can, if someone says always or never when talking about color, I take it with a grain of salt, because there's never and always, except that there's always other ways to do things and get what you need done. So in terms of,
We have a follow-up.
yeah,
We have a follow-up question to the last one. Of the follow-up is, in other words, ChromaChecker needs to be considered with integration of existing ERP, CRM, MIS, and among big companies can't exist as a separated information system. No problem?
Oh, I totally agree. In fact, we have a lot of our customers telling us we're the ERP system for color. That's how they describe ChromaChecker. We're the enterprise resource planning tool for color, because we do it all with color. We do everything. So we're the ERP for color. I love that description. So the person,
but can it go in with their existing ERP is the question. Can it
yes,
integrate with their
that's
existing?
what our API allows, is direct integration. We're not a typical ERP. I'm calling us an ERP for color, which integrates with your ERP for your organization. And ERP is much broader than just color, but our color data can easily be integrated with your company's ERP system. Yes. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so please, everybody, turn on reporting, educate managers, educate salespeople, educate operators on what it means. This is all about continuous improvement, getting better every week, and sustainability in terms of minimizing waste and sustaining the environment and your organization. This will greatly improve the visibility and profitability for not only your organization, but also you as a color champion within your organization. So we really encourage you to turn on your accountability inspector reporting. And we do have online tutorials on how to do this. And I'm just going to pop out here for a sec and highlight our, here's our homepage, chromachecker.com. Here's our color quality conference. And if I click here, here's the conference program as we've got it set up today. On the first day, beginning track and advanced track. Second day is kind of like a process color day. And the third day is more of a brand quality control day. And we have hands-on throughout here. We have some really nice sponsors this year, like Konica Minolta, and we've got NASDAR, we've got Alder, and we've got some of the, expecting some of the same ones we've had in past years. Hopefully we'll have some new ones as well. But without Printing United having a color conference this year, and they've pretty much said they're not going to do one again, we're kind of the only color conference in North America. So if you want to learn about color, come to our conference and you'll learn a lot. And if you don't have ChromaChecker, we give you a free license for 6 months so that anything you learn at the conference, you can actually apply when you get back to your office. So anyone else have any questions? Or Tim, you want to say anything about the conference, or putting you on the spot here?
Yeah, it's an amazing event. Everybody has a blast. And going back to what you said about sharing information is, I started in this trade in the union, which closely guards their secrets even amongst the employees. And I grew up in that environment, and I still have some of that disease, and I don't want to share things. But one of my good friends once told me that it's like a guitar riff, man. Just give it away. You'll be onto something else before they even know what you're talking about. So I try to live by that motto, and at this stage, I'm willing to give anything I know away because I just don't care. I feel like I'm working so hard on new projects that I'm ahead of the curve. So I'll give you everything I got.
And Tim's one of the consultants that teaches you to fish. He doesn't want you to rely on him to fish. He teaches you how to do it, so you don't need him to do what he taught you. So many consultants are out there. They only tell you enough, so you have to keep engaging with them. That's not Tim. That's not Dan. That's why these guys are open to helping us put on this conference. So thanks, Tim. Thanks for chiming in there. Love working with you. Thanks for being such a great partner. And I'll sign off here. I know I went over. I'm sorry. Hope everybody has a great week. And if you want the presentation, just feel free to email me at david@chromachecker.com, and I'll send you the slides that you missed while I was just talking.
And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn.
Yes, thank you, Beth. Please follow us on LinkedIn.